Stop crying. No one will hear you in the basement, the woman hisses as the steel door slams. On the other side, two small fists beat until the dark swallows the sound. By morning, the mansion glitters, cameras blink. A fiancée smiles like glass. Grace, ex-nurse, now maid, moves room to room as Lucas flinches from touch and Emma searches for an inhaler that isn't there. A whisper says the unstable maid is to blame. Grace tastes the lie, finds the locked door, and rips it open to save a child's breath. For that, she's fired, past dragged into the light. But the house keeps secrets poorly. An old red light winks in the basement, the forgotten eye of a camera. In the control room, her hand shakes over one word, play. Who locked the children in the dark and who needs Grace silenced? When the footage runs, whose perfect life shatters first? Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. On most days, the Hayes mansion looked like a magazine picture. White stone walls, shiny black cars lined up like soldiers, a fountain in the drive that never stopped singing. Inside, everything smelled like lemon polish and money. Grace moved through the quiet halls with a laundry basket on her hip. Her grey maid's uniform was neat, but the fabric was worn. She always made sure her collar was straight. It was one tiny thing she could control. On her wrist, hidden under her sleeve, she wore an old hospital bracelet. It had been from a child who didn't make it. The little girl's mother had pressed it into Grace's hand before the lawyers came. "Keep it," the woman whispered through tears. "I know it wasn't your fault." Grace had wrapped the bracelet in tape so it wouldn't fall apart. She touched it whenever her hands shook. It reminded her of two things at once: how much she had loved her job as a pediatric nurse and how fast rich people could rip your life apart. "You're late with those sheets," Martha said, stepping into the hall. She was the head housekeeper, round and serious, with a tight bun. "Victoria wants everything perfect. The engagement party is in 7 days." "I'm almost done," Grace said softly. "I just need to change the children's beds." Martha's hard eyes softened for a moment. "The kids like you. Try not to make trouble, okay?" "I don't plan to," Grace said. Trouble had a way of finding her anyway. She pushed open Lucas's bedroom door with her shoulder. His room was neat in a way that made sense only to him. Books in perfect stacks, toy cars lined up on the windowsill, posters pinned in exact straight lines. On the pillow lay a small blue toy car. Its paint was chipped on one side. Grace picked it up with care. Lucas carried this car everywhere. Martha had told her it was the last thing his mother had given him before she died. A symbolic anchor, a tiny piece of a mother's love in plastic and metal. Lucas sat cross-legged on the floor, building a tower of blocks. He didn't look up when Grace entered. "Hey, buddy," she said gently. "It's just me." His fingers paused on a red block. "Did you touch my car? Just move it so I don't wash it by mistake." She placed the blue car back exactly where it had been. "See, same spot." He studied it, then gave a small nod. "You changed the angle," he muttered, but he didn't sound angry, just factual. "I'm sorry," she said. She turned it a tiny bit left. "Like this? Better," he said. Grace smiled. That was Lucas's version of "it's okay." Emma's room was next door, all pink and white, full of stuffed animals. The little girl sat on the bed in her pajamas, hugging a big teddy bear. "Gracie," Emma said, her face lighting up. "Can you braid my hair after I change your sheets?" Grace said. "How's your breathing today?" Emma shrugged. "Okay, my chest is tight, but I used my inhaler." Grace glanced at the pink inhaler on the bedside table. Years of nursing made her eyes notice details first. The dose counter on the inhaler was low, too low. "Have you been wheezing a lot?" she asked. "Or using it more than usual?" "Only when Tori locks us in the dark," Emma whispered. Grace's hands froze on the sheet. "What do you mean?" Her voice stayed soft, but her heart jumped. Emma looked at the door like it might have ears. "Nothing. You can tell me," Grace said. She knelt so their faces were level. "I won't be mad. I just want you safe." Emma bit her lip. "Sometimes Lucas gets loud, and Tori says he has to learn or Daddy will send him away. She says time out in the basement makes him brave." The basement. Grace felt a cold slide down her spine. "Does your daddy know she does that?" Emma hugged the bear tighter. "Daddy is always on the phone. Tori says not to disturb him with baby problems. Baby problems? Grace swallowed hard. How long does she keep you there? Until we stop crying. Emma's eyes shone. Lucas doesn't cry, he just rocks and hits his head. I don't like it down there, it smells like metal. Grace reached up and gently touched Emma's hair. Has she ever locked the door? Emma looked away. I'm not supposed to say. Emma. The little girl's eyes filled with tears. She gave one tiny nod. That was the moment Grace knew something was very wrong in that house. Before she could say anything else, heels clicked down the hallway. Sharp, fast, Victoria. Her perfume hit the room first, sweet and strong like crushed flowers. Why aren't you dressed, Emma? Victoria said as she swept into the room. Her white silk blouse glowed against her tan skin. A diamond on her finger caught the light. I was just, Emma began. Victoria's practiced smile froze when she saw Grace kneeling by the bed. I thought you were changing sheets, not playing therapist, she said. We have staff for each task. Try not to confuse them, dear. Her voice was light, but the words were knives. Emma wasn't feeling well, Grace said. Her inhaler is almost empty. She might need a refill sooner than I already handled it, Victoria cut in. She picked up the inhaler, turned it in her fingers with a bored look. I'm not stupid, you know. I can read numbers too. She slid the inhaler into the drawer of the nightstand and closed it with a soft click. Please keep it out, Grace said carefully, in case she needs it fast. Victoria's eyes met hers. The smile didn't reach them. Are you teaching me how to care for my future stepdaughter? She asked. That's cute. Grace lowered her gaze. No, ma'am. Good. Victoria smoothed Emma's hair with her fingers. Sweetheart, go wash your face. Your father wants a family photo tonight. When Emma was gone, Victoria took one step closer to Grace. Stay in your lane, she whispered. You clean, I raise. Remember that. She turned and walked out, heels tapping a cold rhythm. Grace stood alone in the pink room, staring at the closed drawer where the inhaler now hid. She didn't know it yet, but that small, careless motion would later decide who almost died and who went to jail. By sunset, the mansion was glowing. Lights shone from every window. Staff rushed around polishing silver and placing flowers. Daniel Hayes came home late, as usual, dropping his briefcase on a marble table. He was tall, with tired blue eyes and a constant phone in his hand. Welcome home, sir, Martha said. How are they? He asked without looking up. The kids, fine, sir, Martha said. Lucas had his tutor. Emma rested. Daniel nodded absently. Grace watched from the hallway, carrying a tray of glasses. She had seen this scene every evening for 3 months. Daniel always asked. No one ever gave him the full answer. He walked into the living room where Victoria waited in a slim black dress, 2 champagne glasses ready. Busy day? She asked, tipping her head just right. You have no idea, he sighed. He kissed her cheek. The board is nervous about the merger. The press is watching the engagement party like it's a royal wedding. That's because it is, she laughed, looping her arm through his. Billionaire tech king finally finds love again. 2 sad little children get a new mother. It's a fairy tale. Grace flinched at the word sad. She thought of Lucas carefully lining up his cars and Emma clutching her teddy. They weren't props in a story. They were humans. Have they warmed up to you more? Daniel asked. I know Lucas is special. It's been hard for him since Lily died, the late wife, the one whose hospital bracelet sat on Grace's wrist. Victoria's smile dimmed, became soft and broken in just the right way. We're getting there, she said. It takes time and patience. She laughed lightly. Sometimes I feel like the mean stepmother from stories. But someone has to be firm, right? Thank you, Daniel said, squeezing her hand. You've been a miracle. Grace walked past them, eyes down, but Victoria's word caught on her like a hook. Mean stepmother. Sometimes the truth hides inside a joke. As she placed the glasses on a side table, Grace saw something else. On the wall across from the living room was a black frame with a small screen, a security monitor. It showed 4 split views from outside the house: gate, driveway, garden, pool. In the corner of one image, at the very edge, was a dark rectangle, a door at the bottom of the back stairwell. Grace knew that door. It led to the basement storage rooms. There was no camera inside the basement, she had been told, only outside it. But if that was true, Why did Emma speak of the dark like it was a person she knew? The monitor flickered. For a moment, it showed static, then returned to normal. Grace felt the first drop of a storm forming, far away but coming closer. The first real blow landed 3 nights later. It was almost midnight. The house had gone quiet. Most staff were in the small building behind the mansion, where their shared rooms were. Grace was finishing up alone. She had traded shifts so another maid could go home for a sick child. She checked Emma's room one last time. The little girl slept soundly, her teddy bear under her arm. The inhaler, Grace noted, was not on the bedside table. Her stomach tightened. She opened the drawer, empty. Did Victoria return it? She whispered to herself. She checked the bathroom, the desk, even under the bed. Nothing. Across the hall, Lucas's door was half open. Grace pushed it gently. "Lucas," she called softly. No answer. The bed was empty. The blue toy car was missing from the pillow. A chill shot through her. Maybe he's with his father, she thought. But the master bedroom light was off. The door closed. Daniel had said goodnight hours ago. He had an early morning flight. Grace walked faster down the hall, checking room after room. Playroom, study, guest room, nothing. Then she heard it. A faint, rhythmic thumping, dull like someone hitting wood with their hand. It echoed through the pipes and the floor, from below. "Lucas," she called again, louder. No answer. The thumping continued faster. Grace didn't hesitate. She ran down the back stairs, her soft shoes barely making a sound, past the staff kitchen and laundry to the heavy grey door at the end. Basement. The air was colder here. The thumping was louder now, and there was another sound mixed inside it. Crying, Grace grabbed the doorknob. It didn't turn, locked. Her heart slammed into her ribs. "Hey, hello, who's down there?" "Gracie," came a tiny, cracked voice. "I can't breathe." "Emma." Grace's blood turned to ice. "Emma, baby, are you with Lucas?" A cough, then a wheeze. "It hurts." "Where's your inhaler?" "Tori took it," Emma sobbed. Grace slapped the door with her palm. "Stay away from the stairs, okay? I'm getting you out." She tried the knob again, harder. It didn't move. The keys. The house keys were on a ring that Martha kept in a locked drawer. There was no time to search. Grace took 3 steps back, then threw her whole weight against the door. Pain shot through her shoulder. Again. On the 4th hit, something cracked. "Gracie," Lucas's voice came faintly. He sounded very close to a meltdown. Too dark. "Hurts, I'm here," she shouted. "Count with me, Lucas. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. He muttered from the other side, rocking the words. She stood back one more time, took a deep breath, and slammed into the weakest point just above the lock. With a sharp, tearing sound, the latch broke. The door burst inward. Cold, metal-smelling air washed over her. She ran down the concrete stairs. A small emergency light glowed at the bottom, painting everything in sick orange. Lucas sat on the floor, back against the wall, his head banging lightly over and over. The blue toy car lay beside him. Emma was next to him, curled up, wheezing so hard she could barely cry. Grace dropped to her knees. Years of training snapped awake inside her like someone switched on a light. "Lucas, look at me," she said firmly. He didn't. She grabbed his hands. "Enough," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "Squeeze my fingers." Now, his rocking slowed. His fingers wrapped around hers. He stared at her face, eyes wide and glassy. "Good," she said. "I'm here, you're safe." She turned to Emma. "Deep breath, honey," Grace said. "Slow, in, out." "I can't," Emma gasped, tiny chest heaving. Grabbing her phone, Grace dialed 911 with one hand while feeling Emma's pulse with the other. "This is Grace Miller at 17 Oak Ridge Lane," she said quickly when the operator answered. "Child with asthma. Severe attack. In the basement. I need an ambulance now." She gave details in short sentences, the old nurse in her taking over while the maid stayed in the background. When she hung up, she lifted Emma gently. "We're going upstairs," she said. Emma clung to her. "I'm scared." "I know," Grace's throat burned, "but I've got you. Nobody locks you in the dark again, not while I'm here." As she hurried up the stairs with both children, one thought pounded in her mind. Who did this? On the main floor, the living room lights suddenly flicked on. Grace stopped short. Victoria stood by the fireplace in a silk robe, a glass of red wine in her hand. Her hair was perfect, like she had just stepped out of a commercial. Her eyes widened at the sight. Grace, breathless, carrying Emma, with Lucas gripping her uniform and the broken basement door hanging open downstairs. "What on earth are you doing?" Victoria cried. "Why are the children out of bed? And what happened to that door? You locked them in the basement." Grace shot back before she could stop herself. "Emma was having an asthma attack. I had to break the door." Victoria's face flickered. For a heartbeat, something cruel moved under the surface. Then it was gone, replaced by shock. "Are you insane?" she said, voice rising. "I put them in timeout in the playroom for 10 minutes. They must have followed you, and you decided to smash down a door. Do you know how much that costs?" "They were locked," Grace said. "I heard them." Victoria looked past her at Lucas and Emma. "Did Grace lock you down there?" she asked slowly. Lucas's eyes darted between the women. Emma tried to speak but only coughed. "Don't answer," Grace said at once. "You're scared." "It's not their fault." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "What did you do?" Victoria snapped. "I called an ambulance," Grace said. "Emma needs a doctor." Victoria's cheeks flushed. "You called 911 without asking me or Mr. Hayes." Grace stared at her, stunned. She couldn't breathe. "You overreacted." Victoria threw her hands up. "Do you understand what this looks like? News vans listen to scanners in this area. We'll be all over the internet by morning." The poor little billionaire girl rushed to the hospital because the maid panicked. Grace held Emma tighter. "I would rather be called dramatic than bury another child." For a second, the room fell silent. "You did this," Victoria whispered. "Whatever happens now, it's on you." The front door burst open and the EMTs rushed in with a stretcher. As they loaded Emma, all Grace could think was one simple question that wouldn't stop echoing. What would have happened if I hadn't heard them? If you were in Grace's place, what would you do next? The hospital lights were too bright. Grace sat in a plastic chair outside the pediatric ER, hands clasped so hard her knuckles had gone white. The smell of disinfectant brought back a flood of old memories she tried to push away. "Emma Hayes," a doctor called. Daniel and Victoria jumped up in unison. Grace stayed seated, but every muscle in her body leaned toward the doctor. "Your daughter is stable," the doctor said. "Her lungs were tight, but we got it under control. She'll need to stay the night for observation." Daniel's legs seemed to give out in relief. "Thank God." "What caused it?" Victoria asked. Her voice trembled just enough to sound perfect. "She had her inhaler. According to the paramedic, she didn't have it with her," the doctor said. "They asked where it was. The girl said," he checked his notes. "She said Tori took it. Does that mean anything?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears on cue. "She was confused," she said. "She's just a child. Our maid, Grace, has been acting strangely. She's been scaring them with stories about the dark and the basement." All eyes turned to Grace. "That's not true," Grace said, standing. "I found them locked in the basement. The door wouldn't open. I had to break it." The doctor frowned. "Locked in?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "Why would my children be in a locked basement, Victoria?" "I don't know," she cried. "Maybe Grace put them there to play hero. She's been trying very hard to make herself look needy." "That's a lie," Grace said, heat rising in her chest. "Emma told me you locked them down there for timeout. She said you took her inhaler because she was playing with it like a toy," Victoria snapped. "And now you're twisting everything to cover your own mistake." "My mistake?" Grace's voice shook. "My mistake was not calling the police on you the first time Emma told me you were scared of the dark because of you." "Enough," Daniel said sharply. His eyes were on Grace now, hard and searching. "Why did you break my door?" "Because your children were screaming," she said, meeting his gaze, "and no one else was listening." The doctor cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "Mr. Hayes, I'm required to file a report when a child arrives in this condition, and there are questions about supervision." "Are you saying we are bad parents?" Victoria exclaimed. "I'm saying it will be up to Child Protective Services to look into it," the doctor replied calmly. "They may contact you in a few days." "Great," Victoria muttered under her breath. "As if we need that circus." Daniel rubbed his temples. "Can we see Emma?" "In a moment," the doctor said, then walked away. Victoria turned on Grace. "You've destroyed us," she hissed so only Grace could hear. "You think he'll keep you after this? You're crazy." Her words hit a weak spot Grace tried to hide. Crazy, unstable, reckless. Those were the same words lawyers had used about her in court when the rich donor's child died at the old hospital. They had called her emotional for ordering tests they hadn't written. They had said she panicked and used the wrong medication. None of it had been true, but truth hadn't mattered. Money had. Grace looked at Daniel, hoping, begging silently for some sign that he believed her. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Go home, Grace," he said quietly. "We'll talk tomorrow." She swallowed hard. "Sir, please, tomorrow," he repeated. His tone was final. On the ride back in the staff van, Martha sat beside Grace, hands folded in her lap. "You shouldn't have broken that door," Martha said after a long silence. "Mr. Hayes hates anything out of control." "They were locked in," Grace repeated, like she was trying to convince herself she wasn't crazy. Emma couldn't breathe. "I believe you," Martha said softly. "But believing and speaking are two different things in houses like this." Grace turned to her. "What does that mean?" Martha looked out the window at the dark trees flashing by. "It means this has happened before," she said. "Not with you. With other staff, they see something, they say something, and then they are gone." She didn't say fired. She didn't have to. Grace stared into the night, feeling the old weight of her hospital badge around her neck, even though it had been taken years ago. She had sworn she'd never let a child's safety be pushed aside by fear again. But fear was here, whispering that she was about to lose everything a second time. The next morning, the mansion felt colder. News already buzzed online. A gossip site had posted a blurry phone photo of the ambulance outside the Hayes gate with the caption, "Hayes heiress rushed to ER days before fairytale engagement." In the kitchen, the staff whispered in low voices that stopped when Grace walked in. Lee, the youngest maid, barely 20, gave her a nervous smile. "Hey Grace," she said. "How's Emma?" "Stable," Grace said. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. "Thank God." "You were brave," Lee said, "going down there alone." "I would have fainted." "Brave or stupid," another maid muttered. Joseph, the driver, cleared his throat. "You did what you had to," he said. "Kids come first." Grace managed a weak smile. At least someone thought so. Martha walked in with a clipboard. "Grace, Mr. Hayes wants to see you in his study." Now, Grace's stomach dropped. She followed Martha down the hall. Her footsteps sounded too loud on the polished floor. Outside the study door, she paused. "Do you think he'll fire me?" Martha hesitated. "I think," she sighed, "I think you should tell the truth and be ready for anything." "Thank you," Grace said. "Don't thank me yet," Martha replied, then knocked. "Come in," Daniel's voice called. The study was lined with bookshelves and awards. A big desk sat near the window, overlooking the garden. The air smelled like leather and coffee. Daniel stood by the window, hands in his pockets. Victoria sat on a chair nearby, arms crossed, face pale but angry. "Sit," Daniel said, not unkindly. Grace sat on the edge of a leather chair, back straight. "I spoke with the doctor this morning," Daniel began. "He said Emma will be discharged later today. He also said Child Protective Services will be opening a file." Grace nodded. "They should," she said. "They need to know she's being locked." "Do not interrupt me," Daniel said sharply. Grace flinched. He took a breath. "Victoria tells me you've been overstepping your role, giving medical advice, stirring up fear in the children. And then last night, you broke a door and called an ambulance without consulting anyone." "Sir, with respect," Grace said, voice shaking, "if I had stopped to find you, Emma might not be alive." Victoria rolled her eyes. "So dramatic." Daniel held up a hand to silence her. "I'm not saying calling 911 was wrong," he said slowly. "I'm grateful Emma is okay, but this basement story, locking them in, it doesn't make sense." "It makes perfect sense," Grace said. "Ask Emma, ask Lucas, ask the staff who have heard them cry down there." "Children say strange things," Victoria cut in, "especially children like Lucas. He has a wild imagination. You've been feeding it with your own trauma stories." Grace's head snapped toward her. "I have never talked about my past with him." Victoria leaned back, smiling faintly. "The hospital bracelet under your sleeve," she said. "You think no one sees? The way you stare at the ER doors like they're going to eat you." Grace's hand flew to her wrist. "I did a background check," Victoria said, her eyes gleaming. "On all the staff. You were a nurse. You were sued. You lost your license after a child died on your watch." Daniel's brow furrowed. Is that true? Grace's chest tightened. It is, but it wasn't my fault. The parents were rich donors, Victoria finished smoothly. They said you panicked, gave the wrong drug, tried to cover it by blaming allergies. You got emotional, you still do. Her smile was bright and cold. I think you have trouble telling danger from your own fear. Grace felt like the ground was tilting. This was her worst secret, turned into a weapon. I didn't kill that child, she whispered. The doctor ordered the wrong meds. I tried to speak up. No one listened. Of course, Victoria said in a fake sympathetic voice. Everyone is always out to get you. Stop, Grace said louder. Daniel looked between them, jaw tight. Grace, why didn't you tell us about your past? Would you have hired me? She asked quietly. He hesitated. That answer was clear enough. Exactly, Victoria said. She lied by hiding it. That shows she knows she's not fit for this job. I lied because I needed work, Grace said, because people like you made sure no hospital would touch me. But I never lied about your children. I heard Emma say you lock her in the basement. I found Lucas there. I saw. Enough. Daniel's voice boomed, making both women jump. I can't listen to any more of this. He rubbed his face. You're both accusing each other. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. But I do know that this house will not become a battleground, not with my kids in the middle. He looked at Grace, his eyes tired. I appreciate what you did last night, he said. But you've broken my trust by hiding your history, and you've brought CPS into my home. I can't have that. The words hit her like a slap. Are you firing me? She whispered. He looked away. Martha will give you 2 weeks' pay. Pack your things today. Victoria's lips curved. I think that's fair, she said. Grace stood slowly. Her legs felt numb. Sir, please, she tried one last time. Just check the cameras, the basement door, the hallway. You'll see who took them down there. We only have cameras in public areas, Daniel said. Not in the basement. I don't spy on my children. Maybe you should have, Grace said before she could stop herself. Her voice was small, but the words were sharp. Daniel's face hardened. The decision in his eyes turned to stone. Goodbye, Grace, he said. She wanted to scream, to throw something. To shake him and say, your money won't warm their beds when they're gone. Instead, she just nodded, turned, and walked out. In the hallway, her vision blurred with tears. Martha waited there, silent. Well, Martha asked, though she could guess. I'm done, Grace whispered, just like that. Martha's mouth pressed into a thin line. Come, she said, let's get your things. As they walked toward the staff quarters, Grace passed the security monitor again. This time she saw something she hadn't noticed before. In the bottom corner of the screen, half covered by a plant, was a small icon, a tiny square inside a square, a button. She stopped. What's that? She asked. What's what? Martha said. That symbol, Grace pointed. On the monitor, it looks like another camera. That's for the old system, Martha said. From before the renovation. Mrs. Hayes was nervous after a break-in years ago. She had them put cameras everywhere. Even the basement. When she died, Mr. Hayes said it was too much. Most of them were turned off, but, she shrugged. Patrick in security said some are still wired to the server. Grace's heart skipped. The basement? She asked. I don't know, Martha said. Ask Patrick, he lives above the garage. Grace stared at the little icon. If there was even a chance that cameras still worked, it could show the truth. She had already lost her job. Her name was already dirt. What more could they take from her? She turned to Martha. I need to see Patrick, she said. Martha frowned. Grace, let it go. You can't fight these people. You tried. Now leave before they throw you out with the police. Grace shook her head. I'm not leaving, she said quietly, a new steel in her voice, until I know exactly what that camera saw. Martha studied her for a second, then sighed. All right, she said. You want a war. At least don't go in alone. She patted Grace's arm, and for the first time since this nightmare started, Grace felt a small, shaky thing inside her chest. Hope. Patrick's tiny office above the garage was filled with screens. They glowed in the dim room, showing every corner of the estate. Driveway, back gate, pool, front door. It was like looking through 100 unblinking eyes. Patrick himself was a big man in his 40s, with a buzz cut and coffee stains on his shirt. He looked surprised to see Grace and Martha, Thought you'd be halfway out by now, he said. Not yet, Grace replied. I need your help. He raised an eyebrow. Pretty sure helping you is on the list of things that'll get me fired. Then help me for the kids, she said. Not for me, he shifted in his chair. His eyes flicked to Martha, who crossed her arms. You owe those kids, she said. We all do, Patrick sighed. What do you want? Is there still a camera in the basement? Grace asked. From the old system Mrs. Hayes installed, he scratched his beard. Most of that junk's been offline for years. But not all of it, Martha said. Show her, Pat. He hesitated, then clicked a few keys. One of the screens changed, splitting into smaller squares. Old feeds, he said. Most are dead. See, static. He flipped through them. Empty rooms, glitches, black screens. Grace leaned closer, her heart raced. Then one square flickered differently from the rest. A view of concrete stairs, a metal door, a small brick room with a single dim light, the basement. It's still recording, Grace whispered. Patrick frowned. The motion sensor kicks in sometimes when the boiler turns on. Figured it was rats. I didn't bother Mr. Hayes. Man doesn't like extra drama. Show me last night, Grace said. Patrick shook his head. That's archived. Old DVR in the back. Pulling it up will take a while. I'll wait, she said. Please. He looked at her, then at Martha again. Something in Martha's hard, sad eyes made his shoulders drop. Fine, he muttered. You got 30 minutes until my shift changes. After that, you're on your own. He dug out a dusty black box from under the desk. Wires snaked from it. He blew off cobwebs, coughed, then plugged it into a screen. A menu in an old grey font popped up. Dates, times. He scrolled to yesterday evening. 8 o'clock p.m., 9 o'clock p.m., 10 o'clock p.m. He hit a button. On the screen, the empty basement stared back. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then at 10:14 p.m., the shape of a door at the top of the stairs opened. Two small figures appeared, pushed from behind. Lucas stumbled, flapping his hands. Emma clutched her teddy. A third figure followed, tall, slim, in a bathrobe. Patrick whistled low. Well, I'll be, Victoria. Even on the grainy black and white video, her body language was clear, sharp, controlling. They watched as she marched the children down the stairs. On the screen, children's mouths moved. The camera had no sound, but Grace could hear their cries anyway in her mind. Emma turned back, reaching for something, maybe the inhaler. Victoria took an object from her hand and slipped it into her robe pocket. It's her, Martha said, voice tight. No mistaking that walk. Victoria pointed to a corner of the room. The kids moved there, huddling together. Then she stepped back to the stairs, turned off the light, and closed the door. The screen went almost dark. Only a strip of light under the door remained. Can you zoom in? Grace asked. Patrick pressed a key. The picture enlarged slightly. They could see Lucas start to rock, his hands over his ears. Emma curled up, shoulders shaking. Grace's eyes burned. Fast forward, she whispered. They watched the time-stamp jump ahead. 10 minutes, 20, 30. The kids didn't move much, just small shifts, tiny signs of rising panic. At what time did you hear them? Patrick asked. A little after 11, Grace said. They forwarded to 11:02 p.m. The door at the top of the stairs shook. A dim change in light showed someone hitting it. Then the door burst open, and Grace herself appeared, rushing down, phone in hand. She scooped up Emma, touched Lucas's shoulders, then led them out. The camera caught just a corner of her face as she turned upward. Patrick stopped the video. Silence filled the small office. You see, Grace said softly. I didn't make it up. Patrick blew out a slow breath. No, he said, you didn't. Martha touched the screen with her fingers. That witch, she muttered, smiling in our faces like butter wouldn't melt. Can you copy this? Grace asked Patrick. To a USB, a disk, anything, he hesitated. If Mr. Hayes finds out I copied security footage without his permission, I'm fired, maybe sued. If CPS comes and this disappears, you'll be worse than fired, Martha said. You'll be the man who watched kids suffer on a screen and did nothing. Patrick's jaw worked. He stared at the frozen image, two shaking children in a concrete room, a closed door above them. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a small USB stick. I didn't see any of this, he said, almost to himself. Understand, my system glitched. You walked in, You pressed buttons. I went to the bathroom. A tiny, crooked smile tugged at Grace's lips. Understood. He copied the file. The progress bar crawled across the screen. Each percent felt like a lifetime. Finally, it beeped. He yanked the USB out and handed it to Grace. This never touches my desk again, he said. If they come asking, I don't know you. That's fair, Grace said. She slid the USB into her pocket next to the hospital bracelet. Two symbols of pain, and maybe this time of justice. As they left the office, Martha caught Grace's arm. Be careful who you trust next, she said. Not everyone will risk their job for the truth. Grace nodded. I know. She didn't know how true those words would soon become. Back in her small staff room, Grace sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the USB in her hand. It was such a tiny thing, light as a feather. But it held weight heavy enough to crack a rich woman's perfect life. She could take it straight to the police, she thought, or to Child Protective Services, or to a lawyer, or even to the press. But then she pictured Daniel's tired eyes, Emma's shaky breathing, Lucas's way of flapping his hands when strangers came too close. Could they survive a public storm? You can't buy back dignity, she whispered to herself. You can only live like you understand what it's worth. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered. Hello, Grace, a man's voice. It's Dr. Paul Reynolds from the County General, her old hospital. Her chest tightened. Dr. Reynolds. How did you get my number? I called a friend who works at the mansion, he said. She said you were in some trouble. Martha, Grace guessed. What do you want? She asked, a little sharper than she meant. I wanted to say I believe you, he said. About the donor's kid. I saw the charts after. The parents lied. The attending lied. You took the fall. Grace closed her eyes. That was 3 years ago. I know, he said, and I should have spoken up then. I'm sorry. His voice cracked a little on the last word. Why are you calling now? She asked. Because Martha said there are kids in danger again, and because I didn't help you then, but I can maybe help now. How? CPS listens more when doctors talk, Dr. Reynolds said. If you want, I'll go with you. I'll back you up. I can also look at Emma's ER report, see if anything else is off. Grace looked at the USB again. Once, she had stood alone in a courtroom, shaking while rich lawyers tore her apart. Now someone was offering to stand next to her. This was new. Okay, she said slowly. Meet me at the Child Protective Services office in town in an hour. I'll be there, he said. After she hung up, there was a knock at her door. Come in, Grace called. Lee slipped inside, closing the door behind her. Her eyes were wide. I heard you're leaving, Lee said. Is it true? Seems so, Grace said. It's not fair, Lee said, lower lip trembling. You're the only one who talks to Lucas like he's normal. Tori just yells when he flaps. She shouldn't, Grace said. He's not bad. His brain just works differently. I know, Lee said. She wrung her hands. Promise me something. What? If you leave, don't forget about them, Lee whispered. Most people do when they get fired from a place like this. They just want to erase it. But Lucas, he needs someone to remember him. To check if he's okay. Grace felt a lump in her throat. I promise, she said. Lee gave a shaky smile. You're a good person, she said. Not like the others. Then she hugged Grace quickly, surprising both of them, and slipped out. Grace sat there for a long moment. The USB felt even heavier now. She stood, put it carefully into her bra where no one would easily find it, picked up her bag, and walked out of the only safe room she had left. As she passed the living room, she heard Victoria's laugh. By the time the party starts, no one will remember some silly asthma attack, Victoria was saying to a friend on speaker. They'll be too busy posting photos of my ring. Grace paused just out of sight. Yes, the maid made a scene, Victoria continued, voice dripping with contempt. But Daniel is handling it. You know how these girls are, desperate for attention, always looking for a way to sue. Grace's jaw clenched. This wasn't just about her job anymore. It was about what kind of world those children would grow up in. A world where adults lied and called it love. She walked out the front door with her head high. She didn't know that while she headed toward the truth, someone else was already planning a new lie with her name on it. The CPS office was a plain brick building downtown. No fountains, no marble. Just a tired sign and an even more tired receptionist. Grace sat in a hard chair, the USB in her pocket, Dr. Reynolds beside her. He looked older than she remembered, Maury grey in his hair, Maury lines around his eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I owe you," he replied. "Maybe this is not enough, but it's a start." A caseworker named Sarah, with kind eyes and a stack of folders, led them into a small interview room. "So," Sarah said, clicking her pen, "you're here about the Hayes children." "Yes," Grace said. She told the story, the timeouts, the inhaler, the locked basement. Sarah listened, taking notes. "I know how this sounds," Grace said. "I was fired this morning. You'll see that in their complaint when they call. They'll say I'm bitter, that I'm making things up." Sarah nodded. "It does make the case more complex," she admitted. "But complex doesn't mean untrue." Grace took a breath. This was it. "I have something," she said. She pulled out the USB. "Basement camera footage from last night." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "From inside the basement?" "Yes," Grace said. "The kids are going down with the fiancée, locked in, for almost an hour, until I broke the door and got them out." "That's strong evidence," Sarah said. "If it's authentic." "It is," Dr. Reynolds said. "And I'll sign a statement that Emma was brought into the ER with a severe asthma attack, and that she told staff Tori took my inhaler." Sarah looked between them, then nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "Here's what I can do. I'll open an emergency investigation. I'll review the footage with our tech team, and if it checks out, we can request a court order to enter the home and speak with the children alone. Maybe as soon as tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Grace repeated. "What about tonight?" "We have to follow procedure," Sarah said gently. "The judge is not in his office at 6 p.m. on a Friday. I wish it were faster. I really do." "Tomorrow is still before the party," Dr. Reynolds reminded her, "before she becomes their legal stepmother." Grace nodded slowly. It would have to be enough. As they left the building, Dr. Reynolds stopped her. "One more thing," he said. "I've been talking with some people at the hospital. The case that ruined your career, with the donor's child, there are new guidelines now because of what happened. They quietly admitted mistakes in training sessions. They never said your name, but I think we could get your file reopened." Grace blinked. "You mean I could be a nurse again?" "Maybe," he said. "It will take time, lawyers, hearings. But if we can show a pattern, rich families blaming staff, covering abuse or errors, your case might look different now." Grace felt dizzy. "The past can't be erased," Dr. Reynolds said. "But sometimes it can be rewritten with the truth." She thought of Lucas, believing for years that his meltdowns had killed his mother because Victoria whispered it to him in the dark. "Love without honesty is just vanity in a prettier dress," she murmured. "What?" Dr. Reynolds asked. "Nothing," she said. "Thank you, really." They parted ways in the parking lot. Grace didn't see the black car across the street, engine running, where Lee sat in the passenger seat, hands twisting in her lap, and Victoria behind the wheel, eyes cold. "Did she go in?" Victoria asked. Lee nodded. "To CPS. With a man." "Good girl," Victoria said. "Now here's what you'll say to Mr. Hayes when he calls." Lee swallowed. "Do I have to?" "You want to keep sending money to your brother in rehab, don't you?" Victoria said softly. "You think that happens for free?" Lee's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, ma'am." "Then you'll tell the truth," Victoria said. "My truth." Lee nodded, trapped. She didn't know yet that this one lie would almost destroy the only person who had promised not to forget those children. The next morning, Grace woke up early in her cheap rented room across town, her phone buzzing non-stop. "Martha, they're saying you hurt Lucas. Call me." "Unknown number. This is Detective Owens. We need to speak with you today about an incident at the Hayes residence." Her heart dropped. She called Martha first. "What happened?" Grace asked. "They found Lucas in the garden at dawn," Martha said, voice shaking. "He was barefoot. Scratches all over his arms, hugging his car. He'd been out there for hours." "He ran outside?" Grace asked. "They said he had a meltdown," Martha replied. "And Victoria told Mr. Hayes you used to take him out at night, that you liked to test him. She said you scared him with stories of the dark so he'd cling to you." "That's insane," Grace said. I know," Martha cut in. "But Lee, she told Mr. Hayes she saw you coming back from the garden late with Lucas one night." Grace closed her eyes. "That never happened." "She looked terrified," Martha said. like someone was holding a knife to her back, but Mr. Hayes was too angry to see it. CPS? Grace asked. Have they come? Not yet, Martha said. But Mr. Hayes called the police to report you. They might arrest you, Grace. Grace's mouth went dry. Come to the house this afternoon, Martha said. Try to explain. Bring whatever you have. I'll be there, Grace whispered. When she hung up, she slumped onto the bed. For a moment, the weight of it all pressed so hard she could barely breathe. Another rich family, another set of lies, another set of lawyers and police ready to believe the worst about her because it made their lives easier. What would you do, she whispered to the ceiling, if the whole world thought you were guilty? No answer came, but then she felt the shape of the USB in her pocket, the little plastic car of proof, ready to drive straight through a wall of lies. She sat up. No, she said aloud, not this time. She called Sarah at CPS and told her about the new accusation. Sarah cursed softly. They're trying to flip the story, she said. We'll move faster. I'm going to the judge now to push for that order. What should I do? Grace asked. Go to the mansion, Sarah said. Don't run, that will only make you look worse. Bring the footage. If the police are there, cooperate. I'll try to get there too. Grace hung up, grabbed her bag, and headed for the bus stop. The sky was heavy with grey clouds. The air felt like it was holding its breath. As the bus bumped along the road, she thought of the first time she'd ridden to a courthouse, wearing her best dress, believing truth would be enough. She was not that woman anymore. This time she had proof, allies, and a promise in her heart to two small children. When she stepped off the bus at the bottom of the long Hayes driveway, 2 police cars were already there. So were news vans, just like Victoria had feared and secretly wanted. Grace walked past the cameras, ignoring the shouted questions. Are you the maid? Did you hurt the kids? Did you lock them in the basement? She kept her eyes on the mansion. On the front steps, Daniel stood like a statue, flanked by Victoria and a stern-faced detective. Lucas and Emma were nowhere in sight. Grace took a deep breath and climbed the stairs. It was time to press play. If you found this story powerful, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Your support helps us bring more important stories to light.